Discover the amazing, transformative love story between an Apache warrior and a settler girl. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the dusty Arizona ranch, and for Mary, the vibrant colors of the sky painted a stark contrast to the weight in her chest. At just 22, she was meant to embody her family's ideals of hard work and loyalty. Yet as she wrestled with strands of barbed wire fencing, a heavy unease gripped her. Would she forever be tethered to a life that felt more like a mounting burden than a living promise? The laughter of her family echoed in her mind, visions of their pride filling her with both warmth and dread. She was expected to marry right, to remain steadfast within the boundaries of traditional expectations, but a gnawing restlessness urged her to see beyond the horizon. Caught in the duality of expectation and independence, Mary hesitated. The perfection of her family's vision was impossibly alluring, yet it felt like a cage, confining her hopes of a world painted richly in shades of freedom. With every passing day, her heart raced with the fear of becoming what everyone wanted her to be. What if she turned away from a life of adventure, of following her own desires? Could she summon the courage to defy the life set before her? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications, so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the wind whipped around her, bringing the scent of sagebrush, she lifted her gaze to see a figure emerge in the distance. Dakota. The sight of the Apache warrior coursed through her like a powerful electric current, igniting something in her very core. It was not just the intensity of his presence, but the promise of understanding and connection that drew her closer to him. There was a joy in his laughter, a lightness that felt foreign, yet beautifully intoxicating. The bond they shared, nurtured by his own history, sparked embers in her heart that lit a path towards something thrilling and dangerous. Yet, as they grew closer, whispers of conflict echoed ominously in the distance, newspaper articles fanning the flames of division that threatened to engulf them both. Torn between the history of her upbringing and the budding love that transformed her very being, Mary's heart felt like it was being stretched beyond reason. Her family, who sheltered her with their love, would never understand the depths of her connection with Dakota, and she felt a storm brewing within her. Every interaction with him, a soft touch, a shared laugh, a lingering gaze, challenged her to confront who she was destined to be. The tension was palpable. It crackled as loudly as the gunfire that suddenly erupted in the distance, shattering her reverie. Chaos erupted around her, a sharp reminder that the world held no room for love that defied expectation. Screams mingled with the roar of the wind, and the ground trembled beneath her feet, reenacting the rift forming in her heart. The chasm between loyalty to her family and her fierce love for Dakota widened, leaving her breathless and vulnerable. Amidst the turmoil, Mary's pulse quickened like the rapid cadence of thunder. Desperation clawed at her. Blurred visions of family bonds and love twisted into an agonizing knot. Would she embrace this tumultuous love that cracked open her heart, or would she submit to the legacy that threatened to choke her spirit? The dust settled on a haunting silence, and in that stillness, Mary realized she stood at the precipice of a choice that could change everything. A shudder ran through Mary as the acrid smell of gunpowder mingled with the earthy scent of the land she had always called home. Her heart raced, not just from the fear that gripped her, but from the realization that every element, a firestorm of conflict, expectation, and turbulent love, was pressing her to make a life-altering decision. Adrenaline coursed through her veins. The familiar cadence of her family's ideals nestled against the edge of a life teeming with possibilities, both thrilling and terrifying. As the chaos unfolded around her, drowning out the comforting sounds of the ranch, clarity pierced through the storm in her mind. A choice had to be made, and the thought of letting this moment slip into memory felt implausible. This was not mere infatuation, it was the expression of all her pent-up desires and fearless aspirations. Takoda represented everything that was unchained, his spirit, his dreams, woven intricately with whispers of adventure that danced beneath their stolen glances. But uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. In the quiet moments just after the outburst of violence, she felt a profound loneliness envelop her. She quickly scanned the landscape, searching for Takoda, willing him to emerge from the shadows. Would he, too, be caught within the relentless tide of conflict? Her love for him was a fire that burned fiercely, but she feared it would be extinguished under the cruel weight of societal expectations. Mary turned, stepping away from the remnants of a world she thought safe and unyielding. The ranch, that fortress of stability, felt ominous now. It loomed like a granite cliff against her urge to climb. She had devoted herself to the ideals instilled in her since childhood, but had they prepared her for the juggernaut of emotion that love could be? The insatiable thirst for freedom surged in her chest, pushing her forward. With newfound determination, she ventured back to the barn, where she could still feel the energy pulsing through the air as she sought something, the courage to claim her truth. In the stillness, moments unfolded in flashes. The nightly meetings with Takoda, starlit conversations, laughter threading through the darkness, woven with stories of two worlds straining against one another. They were ephemeral, but potent, the love so unexpected that it redefined her understanding of belonging. As she entered the barn, the earthy scent of hay and leather enveloped her, a safety net that could either comfort or suffocate. She moved through the familiar space with a new purpose, breathing deeper and remembering the fire within her heart as she breathed out the fears that threatened to conquer her. "Mary!" The sound of Takoda's rich voice stirred her soul as he stepped into the barn. Relief washed over her, pushing away the shadows of doubt. The intensity in his dark eyes spoke of unspoken words, echoing her own yearning. "I was searching for you." "I'm here," she replied, the simplicity of her words masking the tempest inside. "Tensions are rising, but I must know." His voice trailed off, searching her face for answers her heart barely understood. "I want to be with you, but I—" The world around them tightened, each heartbeat amplifying her resolve. The gravity of her family's expectations loomed heavily, and she had to confront it. "The time has come to face this," Takoda replied, his voice steady, rural strength a soothing balm to her frayed nerves. His presence became a tether to a future she needed to grasp. "It's more than just us." Mary felt the surge of her thoughts spill over, the tangled loyalties of blood contrasting sharply against an ache for love. "I can't hold on to both. I'm terrified." "Fear can be a teacher," he said, stepping closer. "But it is love that will guide your choices." With his words piercing through her turmoil, something inside her ignited, a voice rising above the familiar din of fear. This was the moment she had craved, a fork in the road where she must choose bravely. The choices weren't black and white. It wasn't merely about love or loyalty. It was about claiming who she truly was. Mary looked deep into Takoda's eyes, a newfound clarity crystallizing in her heart. Whatever storm lay ahead, it would be faced together, or not at all. "I need to break free," she whispered, realizing this was just the beginning of a journey that promised to either shatter her world or teach her how to rebuild it. As their hearts aligned, the cacophony outside swelled, urging them toward an uncertain dilemma. Would they be destined to navigate a world of conflict or craft a narrative that defied the chaos that sought to control them? The stakes felt monumental, and Mary prepared herself for the reckoning that awaited. In that decisive moment, she could feel something shifting within her. A shadow of who she had been fading away as the light of realization warmed her resolve. She gathered herself, ready to step boldly into a world where love and choice intertwined. And beneath the darkening skies, Mary understood that soon she would confront not just external threats, but the deeper battles of her heart that could render her soul wholly alive, or entirely undone. Mary stood there, her breath steadying, as Dakota's presence anchored her against the encroaching tide of uncertainty. The barn, once a mere shelter for livestock and tools, transformed into a sanctuary of decisions. Light filtered through cracked wooden slats, illuminating the dust motes swirling like her thoughts, chaotic, yet aglow with potential. "Mary," Dakota's voice broke through her reverie, drawing her attention back to him. "What is it that you fear most?" The question struck her as deeply as the thunderclap outside. "I fear losing everything. My family, their love, this place." Her hands trembled slightly, and she clenched them into fists, as if to anchor her conflicting emotions. "But I fear losing you more." His expression softened, and he stepped closer, the warmth of his presence a plea for connection amidst the chaos. "It is not about just losing what you have. It's about building what you desire." Those words reverberated in her chest. The clarity that emerged from the tumult was not just about romance. It was about self-discovery, the realization that she had the power to carve her own path. She might have been raised to honor familial loyalty, yet her heart yearned for a journey intertwined with adventure and authenticity. Mary reached for a pitchfork to distract her mind from the swirling fears. With each stroke against the hay, she steadied herself. "What if my family can't understand? What if they despise me for loving you?" Each concern emerged like the rhythmic cadence of a prayer, echoing in the confines of her heart. "Then they must learn the truth of who you are," Dakota replied, his voice unwavering. "You carry the weight of their expectations now, but you don't have to reject love to please them." As she worked, each movement became an exercise in defiance against the fears that haunted her. The rhythm of the pitchfork against the hay shifted something within her. With each thrust, she envisioned cutting away the overly dense foliage of her past, clearing a path for something new to blossom. "Who am I?" she whispered to herself, allowing the question to linger in the air like the rich aroma of earth and hay. The answer felt buried beneath layers of duty and tradition. But peeling back those layers slowly, she began to reveal glimpses of the woman she aspired to be. Mary paused, a sudden thought igniting within her. What if I try to open a dialogue, to show them I am not abandoning them, but rather embracing a broader truth? "Exactly," he encouraged, his gaze locked onto hers, unwavering. "Share with them who you are becoming, but you must also ask yourself, will they accept you fully?" The prospect of that conversation sent a tremor through her. What if their love was conditional? What if their response was rejection, breaking ties she had clung to her entire life? Yet what resonated louder was the belief that surrendering to her fears would ultimately dim the vibrancy of her life. Mary rested the pitchfork against the wall, steadied her breath, and faced Dakota. "I want to be brave, not just for us, but for who I could be, who I should have always been." Dakota nodded, admiration flooding his features. "Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's the resolve to move forward despite it. In that resolve lies your power." An undeniable energy flowed between them, invigorating her spirit. The world outside continued its dissonance, but here, in their sanctum, a quiet promise blossomed. Their love was worth the battles they would inevitably face. They were on the cusp of forging their destiny together, one painstaking decision at a time. And just as she began to believe that she could cultivate not just a relationship with him, but an empowered future for herself, an unsettling noise jolted them from their moment of calm. A distant clash, a reminder of the broader conflict raging beyond their sanctuary. She felt a rush of anxiety wash over her, mingling with an exhilarating courage. If Mary was to confront the world that awaited her, she had to believe in her newfound resolve. The stakes were higher than they'd ever been, and the initiation of her transformation hinged on the next decision. Now was no time to falter. The cacophony of the outside world demanded her attention. Gripping Dakota's hand, she faced the door, her heart racing with a blend of fear and determination. Would she step out to claim her truth, or would the shadows of doubt pull her back? With every ounce of courage she could muster, Mary prepared to step into the fray, ready to confront not just her family, but the very fabric of who she had been raised to be. The moment of truth was upon her, and she bravely prepared to challenge expectations for love, marking the beginning of a life-altering journey. What lay beyond that threshold would reshape everything she thought she knew about identity, love, and the sacrifices born of truth. As the door creaked open, a gust of cool air rushed past Mary, invigorating yet laced with the scent of impending judgment. She paused, heart pounding, a visceral reminder of what lay ahead. The distant sounds of clashing tools and raised voices hung heavy in the air. Each sound wove a tapestry of urgency, clamoring for attention. She could feel her moment of reckoning crystallizing with every beat of her heart. Ready? Dakota's voice was steady beside her, yet she could sense the tremor of anticipation crackling in his words. There was strength in that tone, one that nourished her resolve. Mary leaned into the steady warmth emanating from him, drawing a breath deep from her core. I know I need to say something, but what if they don't understand? The question slipped from her, echoing her internal strife. Then you will show them. It is not the words alone, but your authenticity they must come to see. Dakota's encouragement emboldened her. The idea resonated, signaling clarity amidst the turmoil. She wasn't merely seeking their understanding, she was striving for an acceptance rooted in who she truly was. With trembling fingers, she gripped the rustic doorframe, its grain rough against her palms, a reminder of where she came from. The world outside was familiar, yet foreign, and as she stepped across the threshold, Mary felt the weight of countless lives bridging the gap behind her, the ones she yearned to honor, yet felt bound by. Walking towards the yard, every step felt like an initiation. Her gaze drifted toward the clusters of familiar faces engaged in a heated discussion. The sun cast long shadows across the grass, and the fragrance of fresh hay mingled with the sharp tang of dread. Doubts and fears swirled within her, but each heartbeat reminded her of the deeper purpose behind her actions. "What will you say first?" Dakota asked softly, but his eyes burned with encouragement. "I'll tell them the truth," she replied, resolute. "Not just about us, but about my journey forward. I am not just a daughter to my father. I am a woman who chooses her own path." As the words formed, a fire ignited within her, a light illuminating the dark corners of insecurity. Mary could see her family glancing her way, their expressions ranging from curiosity to disdain. For a moment, her resolve wavered. Yet Dakota's presence loomed behind her, the silent support urging her forward. What awaited her was not merely their scrutiny, but an opportunity, a chance to redefine herself, not only in their eyes but also her own. Once arrived at the garden, she turned to face them, legs planted firmly like roots, even as her heart raced with anticipation. The conversations quieted, attention shifting toward her. A murmur spread through the group, a cacophony of uncertainty, but it barely reached her ears as she focused on the space between them, her visible vulnerability. Listen, she began, struggling as her voice broke over the tension. I have something to share, something important that you deserve to hear. Her father's brow furrowed. What is there to say? You've grown up with us. We've made sacrifices for you, Mary. His tone was stern, revealing layers of expectation she had long internalized. I know, she responded quickly, fostering an edge of urgency in her delivery. But I need you to understand that my life is not just a reflection of your sacrifices. I wish to honor them by being wholly myself. As the murmurs faded into silence, she could see their expressions slowly shifting from confusion to apprehension. In that moment, the fear that gnawed at her heart turned into something more powerful: determination. She was reclaiming her narrative, not only for herself, but for everyone who felt bound by expectation. I am in love with Takoda, she declared, the words pouring from her heart without hesitation. And I refuse to let fear dictate who I choose to love. The silence was deafening. The weight of her confession hung in the air, and she braced for the tidal wave of reactions that would follow. Would there be acceptance, or were they merely waiting to condemn her for her desires? At that pivotal moment, she realized her journey of personal growth was just beginning. The walls of familial love were meant to be tested, and in the confrontation of her truth, she no longer felt alone. As she stood there, ready to face whatever responses awaited her, she felt a pulse of strength shoot through her, a transformative moment of raw, unflinching authenticity. It was this embrace of her identity that would either fracture her familial bonds or fortify them in unexpected ways. Takoda's presence was a steadying hand on her back, fueling her courage. She wouldn't shy away from what came next. And as the murmurs began anew, weaving into a mix of skepticism and intrigue, Mary braced herself for the conversation that would shape not just her relationship with Takoda, but the very fabric of her existence. What if they turn their backs on us? The whisper echoed in her mind, but she crushed it beneath her resolute stance. She had embarked on a journey not just of love, but of self-discovery. The time had come to face the truth. The real conflict lay ahead, poised to either redefine her future or shatter the very foundation on which she had built her existence. Now would be the moment to confront not just her family, but also the expectations they had nurtured for far too long. The silence stretched on, fragile and charged, each heartbeat echoing in Mary's ears. She felt exposed, as if every family secret she had clung to was laid bare before them. Their gazes seemed to probe, dissecting her very essence. A part of her longed to retreat, to pull back into the shadows where expectations felt safer. But she stood firm, a thin thread of resolve anchoring her amidst the emotional tempest swirling around her. Is this a joke? Her brother's voice sliced through the tension, incredulous and sharp. You can't mean this, Mary. You're throwing everything away for him? His words struck her like a blow, igniting a defensive fire within. It's not about throwing anything away. It's about finally choosing what I want for myself. The conviction in her voice surprised even her, the timbre commanding respect as she fought against the flood of familial dismissal. She didn't just want to be seen. She needed to be understood. Her father's face hardened, eyes narrowing. You think we haven't sacrificed enough? This is going against everything we've built as a family. The hurt beneath his accusation was palpable, echoing years of unvoiced expectations that wrapped around her like chains. Mary felt a tightening in her chest, a whirlwind of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. She was seeking connection, yet she sensed the chasm wide between who she was and who they perceived her to be. In that moment, she remembered Takoda's words. Her authenticity was her strongest asset. Then let's talk about the sacrifices, she said, her voice quieter but steady, choking down the storm threatening to burst forth. Yours were made in hopes of a future I never chose, a future that never considered my happiness. I'm not rejecting our past, I am embracing my future. Her heart raced, knowing she needed to push further. I deserve to love freely, and you should support that. A murmur rippled through the crowd, but Mary only had eyes for her father. His expression shifted ever so slightly. The hardness dissipated into something more complex. As the silence settled again, she caught the glint of something. Was it understanding, regret, or perhaps fear of what she had claimed? With newfound determination, Mary stepped forward. The ground beneath her felt solid. Love is not a crime. It should never be a barrier. Takoda is not only the man I love, but he challenges me, inspires me to grow, to become someone greater than who I am right now. She could see her father wrestle with her words, conflicted emotions playing across his face. It struck her then that perhaps this confrontation was not merely about Takoda. It was a pivotal moment in which she laid bare her heart, challenging her family to reconsider their definitions of love and loyalty. Why does who I love change who I am in your eyes? She pressed on, her heart thudding in her chest. This was not simply a rejection of their expectations. It was an invitation for deeper dialogue. She sensed the hesitancy in her family's posture and recognized a crack beginning to form in the walls they surrounded themselves with. But her mother, previously silent, coughed up the raw vulnerability of doubt. What will the community say, Mary? This isn't just about us. You're risking everything. Her voice trembled, tears swimming in her gaze. I'm ready to risk it all, Mary responded, the clarity in her tone ringing out like a promise. Because I have finally found someone who encourages me to be authentic, to live fully. Isn't that what you want for me? To be happy? The murmurs faded again, leaving a silence heavier than before. Mary stood unyielding, the gravity of her own conviction pulling her forward into the unknown, driven by the need for acceptance over mere compliance. Then Takoda stepped closer, grounding her with his presence. Love does not know boundaries, he said softly, his voice a balm that resonated with truth. It connects people, regardless of where they come from. As her family processed these new revelations about love and identity, uncertainty filled the air. Mary knew that moments like these were rare. They were the crux upon which her life could pivot into uncharted territories. Would they see their expectations were merely remnants of a past that can't dictate her future? The world she had always known felt fragile, teetering on the edge of transformation. Yet she stood embodying a person born anew, ready to defend her choices against the fierce storms of doubt. Trust began to bloom within her, the trust that she might just reshape these relationships into something richer and deeper. In that fragile moment of possibility, Mary's pulse quickened, a small but fierce spark igniting her hope. She realized this was the beginning, not the end. The potential for reconciliation floated tantalizingly close, stirring the air with an undeniable urgency. What would they decide to do next? Would her family embrace this new chapter in their lives, or would it drive an even further wedge between them? As the atmosphere remained thick with unspoken words, Mary understood she had opened a door that could not just lead to personal freedom, but to a dawning transformation for all of them. The foundations of her future awaited. She just hoped they would be willing to step through with her. The heavy silence stretched on, wrapping itself around Mary like a cloak suffused with doubt and fear. Her family's reactions weighed heavily on her, the gravity of their discontent pressing against her chest. Yet, within that tension, she felt a flicker of something new, a determination that began to ignite in her core. She hadn't anticipated this pivotal moment to feel so defining, but it was becoming clearer by the second. As Takoda's words settled into the air, Mary found herself drawn to his side. The warmth of his presence steadied her, reminding her of the strength she had been cultivating within. With each heartbeat, she wrestled with the reality that some chosen paths existed merely to challenge the status quo. Her resolve was not only for herself, but also for her family. She wanted them to see beyond the confines of their own fears. "Do you think we can just stand idly by?" she questioned, addressing her family with a newfound fierceness. "This is not merely about me or Dakota. It's about understanding that love transcends all boundaries, even those built on years of tradition." A pang of fear coursed through her, but she pushed it aside. "I will not let fear dictate the essence of my life." Her brother shifted uncomfortably, wringing his hands. "Mary, we've always been about loyalty and respect. You're risking that for some fleeting romance." The underlying concern etched into his brow resonated with her, yet she sensed an opportunity for deeper connection. Loyalty to whom? A family ideal that restricts rather than liberates? Mary leaned in slightly, her voice lower but laced with intensity. "We must evolve, learn, and grow. I want you all to join me on this journey. Our love shouldn't be limited by the past, but enriched by the exploration of new possibilities." She watched her father's face soften in response, a glimmer of something resembling admiration, or perhaps the remnants of pride breaking through. He looked at her with a mix of concern and contemplation, caught between his ingrained beliefs and the undeniable love for his daughter. "Maybe," he began hesitantly, the words weighing heavily before they fell out. "Maybe there is merit in questioning our traditions." "But it's difficult." "I understand," Mary replied, heart racing at the flicker of acceptance in his tone. She was beginning to see the crack in the facade, a shift toward possibility. Change is daunting, especially when it feels like the ground is shifting beneath your feet. But isn't true strength found in vulnerability? The air in the room shifted again, charged with a new emotion. Mary could sense her family beginning to retrace the path from uncertainty toward understanding, propelled by the desire to support her authenticity. She wanted them to grasp the entirety of her journey, not just the surface facade. Turning slightly towards Dakota, she articulated one of the core beliefs she had come to embrace. Living authentically means inviting others to witness your truth, even if it challenges them. I want to break the cycles of misunderstanding, allow room for conversation. "Are we willing to risk our ideas of right and wrong for greater empathy?" she posed, looking each family member in the eye, drawing strength from their presence. Though it took courage to confront entrenched belief systems, she realized this moment was also a test of her relationship with herself. With every heartbeat, she felt the weight of her choices spiral into strength. Yes, she had dared to challenge the family ideals. But in doing so, she was forging a new narrative, one that would encourage her loved ones to grow alongside her. Eagerly, she sought to explore this new territory, and she appreciated the hesitance in her family's reactions. She smelled the faint scent of acceptance and felt its intoxicating pull. Change was never easy, yet the whispered hope hinted at the beauty of this transformative experience. As the conversation continued to unfold, Mary felt a surge of new strength course through her. She envisioned this journey not just for herself, but as a shared experience that could unite them in action. There was no going back. She was pressed forward into the unknown with her heart wide open. But just as the air began to thick with hope, a sharp knock shattered the fragile moment, drawing all eyes to the door. An unexpected intrusion lurked beyond the threshold, threatening to disrupt the tenuous peace they had begun to forge. Would Mary's newly discovered courage withstand this new challenge, or would the force outside once again challenge her authenticity? Mary's heart thudded in her chest, the knock echoing ominously against the walls that had felt so full of warmth just moments before. The sudden intrusion jolted her out of her budding momentum, coupling excitement with a pulse of anxiety. Each family member's expression mirrored her own trepidation, their gazes flickering towards the door, which had transformed from an ordinary exit into a portal of uncertainty. Should someone answer it? Her brother's voice broke the silence, quavering as if he was channeling both apprehension and hope. It was a question wrapped in layers of doubt. He seemed to believe what lay beyond could either illuminate their discussions or extinguish the fragile thread of understanding they had just begun to weave. "Let me," Dakota offered, exuding a quiet confidence that subtly radiated through Mary's unsteady emotions. As he made his way to the door, she felt a surge of admiration. He was firm yet gentle, embodying a strength that urged her deeper into her own resolve. Mary's focus shifted inward as she thought about Dakota's presence in her life, this shared journey they were navigating, and how it had altered her perspective. The door creaked open, revealing a figure shrouded in shadows. An unfamiliar face that exuded a potent mix of hostility and concern. As Dakota's body stiffened slightly, Mary sensed the palpable tension in the air. This stranger threatened the tender growth within her family, disrupting the delicate equilibrium they had begun to establish. "Who are you?" Dakota's voice took on an edge that she rarely witnessed. He stepped slightly forward, protective, while she grasped onto the edge of the coffee table, steadying herself in a wave of uncertainty that washed over her. "I'm here for Mary," the man stated, his tone flat but implicit with authority, as if he carried burdens of his own. A chill crept up Mary's spine, and she glanced at her family's expressions, each face mirroring confusion and concern, not only for themselves but for her. Her choices, her journey, her future. "What does that mean?" Mary interjected, stepping closer, refusing to cower behind Dakota. She felt the unexpected rush of purpose. Standing firm, she could no longer let fear rule her decisions. "What do you want from me?" He hesitated, eyes darting between her and Dakota. "I've come to tell you that being with him could cost you everything. This isn't just about love. It's about loyalty to your family, your people." His words hung in the air, heavy with implications. Mary's throat constricted as the truth of his assertion cut through the vision of her and Dakota's burgeoning future. Memories of her family's worries flared within her, a swirling vortex of loyalty and love, each weighing on her decision. Suddenly, she recalled her father's hesitant acceptance, the way they began to acknowledge her journey of authenticity. This new intruder stood as a monument to the very fears she wanted to overcome, a representation of everything she had challenged only moments before. "I have to confront this," she thought, her resolve hardening against the disapproval of the stranger. "I want to own my truth, no matter what it costs." Taking a step forward, she squared her shoulders. "What's your name? And why do you think you have the right to dictate my life?" There was an unexpected power in her voice, a fierceness that seemed to reverberate off the walls, reinvigorating her belief in her journey. The man faltered, taken aback by her defiance, as uncertainty washed over his features. Mary could soon feel the renewed energy in the air. Familiar but different, a sense of change washing over them once again. As she held his gaze, she felt an unexpected insight bubbling to the surface, revealing the depth of her determinism. Conflict was inevitable, she realized, but it was also an opportunity to strengthen her conviction and spark a fire of those around her. The man shifted uneasily as the silence stretched. Just as Mary prepared to speak further, ready to confront the consequences of her identity, she heard her mother whisper behind her, "This isn't how it's supposed to be, Mary." The words fell down like a damning curtain. Mary's breath hitched in her throat. The familiar echoes of authenticity suddenly tangled with doubt. Would she have to fight against those she loved to embrace her truth? The juxtaposition of her family's support against the gravity of the stranger's words left her gasping for clarity. At that moment, the tension coiled tighter than ever. She couldn't retreat. But what would it mean for her leadership, for Dakota, and for the family that still loomed close? Would her journey into authenticity strengthen them all, or rip apart bonds she fought so hard to mend? With her heart racing and thoughts whirling, she recognized the looming decision that lay ahead. Would she embrace the courage she had uncovered, ready to face the turmoil head-on, or would external expectations force her back into a role she was desperately trying to escape? The air crackled around her, pregnant with uncertainty, marking the beginning of a trial that would redefine her very essence. As the stranger's eyes burned into hers, she knew that the path she chose next would shape not just her future, but the legacy of her family. The door had swung open, but beyond stood not just an intruder, but the embodiment of a choice that loomed over her more than ever before. The fight for her authenticity had only just begun. The tension in the room escalated, suffocating yet electrifying. Mary could feel the weight of the moment, bending beneath the pressure of unspoken fears and simmering truths. Her mother's hesitant voice echoed relentlessly in her mind. "This isn't how it's supposed to be." The words precipitated a storm within her, awakening a deep-seated fear of loss. Yet beneath that fear, a pulse of defiance throbbed with increasing insistence, urging her to reclaim her narrative. "I'm ready to define my own path," she thought, determination igniting into action. The stranger's posture softened momentarily, but she noticed how his gaze continued to flicker between her and her family. It was a silent battle, one that played out like a duel beyond mere words, a clash of expectation and authenticity. "Do you think I'm unaware of the stakes?" she asked, her voice steady but firm. The challenge hung delicately in the air, almost daring him to respond with condescension. Yet she longed to break through the barriers of his preconceived notions, to prove that her truth bore weight and significance regardless of others' opinions. The man folded his arms, an instinctive defensive gesture, yet something fractured slightly in his armor. "You don't know what you're risking, Mary. Your family is counting on you to uphold the values we hold dear." His tone bore an odd mix of concern and intimidation, as if he believed he could shake her confidence through sheer pressure. "I need to risk it all, then," she countered, feeling a thrilling rush of empowerment. There was an undeniable depth to what she was willing to fight for, not just Dakota, but her very essence, the right to love freely and unapologetically. The clarity of her feelings crystallized in this moment. She realized it was not just about defying the stranger, but also about fortifying her bond with her family. "No one's asking you to abandon your family. We just want you to see the bigger picture." His words were a slide of ice, processed instinctively. A deeper resolve formed as Mary opened her eyes wider to the truth around her. The truth that wasn't solely marked by heritage or traditions, but interwoven into her own choices, her own story. "That picture doesn't align with who I am," she replied, heart pounding with each syllable. "I'm no longer willing to define myself by anyone's standards, but my own." The words resonated with the strength surging within her, desperately reaching for the freedom she yearned. Silence enveloped them once again, as the tension trips along the fine line between anger and understanding. She shifted her gaze toward her family, seeking their reactions. Her father's brow furrowed in thought, evidence of his internal conflict visible on his face. It was clear he was grappling with the same ideas she had entertained, somewhere between fear and reluctant acceptance. The stranger noticed their standoff, and slowly, a flicker of acknowledgement graced his expression. "You might feel invincible now, but the consequences can be severe." He leaned forward slightly, voice low. Mary recognized a hint of vulnerability. "If I'm to lead my life authentically, then I can't hide from the consequences," she stated, noting the resolve blooming within her. "Embracing who I am includes risking what's safe." The admission was freeing, almost like shedding a heavy cloak she had worn for so long. As the stranger processed her words, Mary felt a wave of new possibilities ripple through the charged room. She had stood firm in the face of discontent and resistance. Instead of crumbling beneath expectations, she had chosen to carve out her space. She hadn't just fought for her love, but for her own identity, her future. "Mary, wait!" Dakota's voice broke through as the tension shifted in the air once more. A question lingered in his eyes, one that spoke of uncertainty and admiration. It was as if he was sharing in her transformation, pride mixing with worry. With a resolute stance, she turned to Dakota, realizing life would demand more from her than merely voices at the door. The stranger may have come to threaten her, but he had also provided clarity. Her struggle was not solely against him, but against every expectation she had ever faced. Before she could fully assess Dakota's concerns, images of the future loomed large in her mind, the path she needed to create, the bridges she had to build. But the uncertain winding roads blurred ahead, with the qualities she would need to possess still concealed. She drew a deep breath, poised to cross the next threshold of her personal evolution. "I need to know what's truly at stake, not just for me, but for my family too." As the door creaked again on its hinges, revealing a world filled with potential and uncertainty, Mary stood at a critical juncture. She was no longer just fighting against a man at the door. She was stepping into her future, ready to embrace whatever twists lay ahead. Was she prepared to face the trial that would not only challenge her decisions, but question her very essence? The air crackled with an energy that felt both ominous and exhilarating. Mary's heart raced, each beat a call to action, resonating in the silence that enveloped her. She was standing on the brink of her destiny, a river of choices stretching out before her, each one intertwined with implications far beyond her immediate understanding. She shifted her weight slightly, feeling the firm ground beneath her feet, a grounding force she desperately needed in this moment of uncertainty. "Do you really want to know?" she challenged again, her voice steadying. Dakota's gaze bore into her, a mix of admiration and fear mingling in his eyes. He had witnessed her transformation through this conflict. She could sense the depth of his respect, but also his trepidation about what lay ahead. "What do you think we should do?" he asked quietly, the authority of his presence softened by vulnerability. It struck her that true leadership did not reside solely in power, but in the capacity to listen, to share in others' fears and dreams. She loved that he could relinquish control and invite her thoughts into the conversation, but the responsibility weighed heavy on her shoulders. I think I'm ready to hear everything," she replied, the conviction threading her words together. "Not just for me, Dakota, but for everyone." Each syllable took on significance, a stepping stone toward the confrontation she would inevitably face, not just with the stranger, but also with her family, her community, and ultimately, herself. As she surveyed the room, she noted the myriad responses to her newfound resolve. Her mother's apprehensive frown told tales of worry. Her father's knitted brows reflected a struggle with acceptance. The stranger, too, remained a pivotal figure in this moment. He had presumed she would wither under the weight of familial loyalty, yet she was discovering newfound strengths, the kind that flourished under pressure. "Then let's talk," Dakota said, his voice low but steady. "Let's lay everything on the table." The idea was simple yet monumental, and Mary felt her pulse quicken at the prospect. What truths lay undisclosed? What fears had been cloaked beneath the surface of polite conversation? Gripping Dakota's hands tightly, she felt the warmth and solidity of his support, an anchor amidst the storm. If we explore the truth together, I think we can break those barriers. We can face whatever comes. The prospect filled her with energy, an invigorating realization that transparency could be their weapon against the shadows that loomed over them. Dakota nodded with a sense of urgency. How do we begin? Mary inhaled deeply, pushing back the clouds of doubt gathering in her mind. By sharing our stories. Not just our fears or our dreams, but our heritage and truths. My family can't fully understand my choices until they hear where I come from and why Dakota means so much to me. The words felt electric as they escaped her lips. They weren't merely declarations, but invitations to explore deeper narratives shaping their identities. The stranger shifted, finally breaking the silence in a way they hadn't yet witnessed. Are you willing to risk your family's disdain for this outsider? Sometimes, exploration leads to heartache. His eyes narrowed, yet the challenge he posed did not intimidate her. Isn't heartache a part of growth? Mary countered, the weight of her answer imbued with maturity and clarity. Sometimes pain is the catalyst for change. Without it, we stagnate. I cannot abide by a life dictated by fear. Each word seemed to cut away at her previous hesitations, severing ties to expectations that had bound her for so long. Her gaze turned to her family, and then back to Dakota. I want them to see me, truly see me, not just as their daughter, but as a woman forging her path. And I want you to stand beside me, Dakota, as I strip away the layers that have hidden our love. In that quiet moment, laden with charged anticipation, the room transformed. It seemed as if the very walls were holding their breath, awaiting their next action, their next word. The urgency of the conversation summoned a deep need for clarity on who they were and where their loyalties would lie. What if, Mary pondered, the truths they unearthed could bind them together across cultural divides instead of tearing them apart? They could become a mosaic rather than a battleground, a panorama stitched together by acceptance and understanding. The door loomed again, half opened, a gateway infused with uncertainty and opportunity. It was the threshold Mary had feared, but was now determined to cross. Are we ready to share our truths? She asked, the weight of the moment settling around them, urging clarity in the unfolding drama. As they each prepared to speak, it became clear that sharing their truths would reach beyond simple words. This was about forging a responsible connection that transcended fear, about learning to navigate the complex landscape of their intertwined lives. Was this the moment that would forever alter the fabric of their identities, challenging everything they believed? Mary stood resolute, her heart pounding with anticipation. The conversation that had been simmering for so long was about to undertake a transformative journey. This wasn't just about her and Dakota, it was about everyone standing in that yard. They were poised on the brink of reclamation, ready to dismantle the expectations that threatened to shackle them. With renewed vigor, she spoke first, her voice cutting through the tension thick in the air. I've realized something important. Loving Dakota doesn't diminish my love for my family. It enhances it. I can be part of this family while still being true to myself. I love him not just for who he is, but for the person I become when I'm with him. Each word felt like an anchor, grounding her amidst the tempest of uncertainty swirling around them. Dakota's hand squeezed hers, a silent promise of solidarity. Mary's right, he joined, his voice steady and clear. Love isn't a zero-sum game. It expands our worlds and makes us richer. By loving Mary, I'm not asking her to abandon her heritage. I want to celebrate it alongside her. The stranger shifted at these words, his expression softening slightly. Perhaps the convictions he guarded so fiercely were beginning to crack. But before he could process what he had just heard, Mary's brother spoke up. I don't understand how you can want to unite with someone who's from so deeply different a world. He challenged, but with less edge than before. His apprehension lingered like a shadow, but Mary felt it shift. What about our traditions? Mary took a breath, allowing the weight of her family's legacy to ground her. Tradition is something we honor. But it doesn't mean we can't redefine our narratives to preserve it, she explained. I want to create a life where we merge the best of both worlds. Love can bridge those gaps. The emotions in the air shifted again, nudging her family toward the warmth of understanding. A glimpse of hope flickered in her father's eyes. What you're asking of us is not easy, Mary, he finally spoke, a measure of vulnerability cracking his stoicism. The risk is terrifying, but maybe... Mary nodded, sensing a burgeoning openness in her father. I understand, and I'm not asking you to accept it outright. I'm asking for a chance to show you our love isn't a threat, but an opportunity, a chance to grow together. One by one, her family began to voice their fears, their concerns woven closely with love. As the hidden layers unpeeled, the conversation gained momentum, cascading toward mutual understanding. Each familial member revealed their own struggles, loyalties torn under the weight of expectation and the unwarranted fear of loss. I've always felt that my loyalty was to the family first, no matter how it made me feel. Her mother divulged, tears glistening in her eyes. I don't want to lose you, Mary, or the integrity of our family, but you also want me to be happy, Mary replied, matching her mother's gaze. In that moment, the space between them softened. I promise I will never walk away from who I am. I will carry our traditions with me, let them guide me, she declared, conviction resonating in every word. The conversation flowers with possibility, the air infused with the sweetness of understanding. Each acknowledgement felt like a brick removed from the walls encasing their hearts. The stranger observed, realizing he had underestimated the power of vulnerability, how authenticity could spark the soul to reconsider its judgments. We need to learn from each other, Takoda asserted, empowering their dialogue. What if we create a new legacy, one where love begets acceptance, where the lessons of tradition inform our growth without suffocating it? The collective breath held in the yard released, an exchange of spirits igniting a collective recognition. This was about much more than Mary and Takoda. It was about the tapestry of humanity interwoven through personal experiences, mutual respect, and shared love. At that moment, Mary felt as if the decision she had feared, the confrontation, and the risks, had shattered the illusions that had once served as boundaries. This new understanding was her victory, and standing there among her family and Takoda, she solidified her transformation. With courage and clarity, she declared, if we can create our understanding centered in love, we will forge a legacy that transcends our fears. Let's step forward together. As her family nodded in agreement, a palpable shift occurred. The weight of expectations lessened, and warmth surged within them. What had once been silenced by the clamor of fear now sparked curiosity, empathy, and ultimately, connection. Mary realized she no longer feared the future, nor did she cling tightly to the past. She had conquered the inner turmoil that threatened to engulf her, redefining her identity, freer than she had ever been before. Together, they paved a pathway forward, towards acceptance, resilience, and mutual growth. This was the moment she had hoped for. The culmination of all her struggles and triumphs unfolded before her, and with that, she embraced the unknown with solid confidence. Takoda's hand in hers felt strong and enduring, just as she intended her own resolve to be. As they stood united, family and love, Mary felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment cascade through her heart. She had not only challenged the expectations that had bound her, she had forged an unwavering bond with Takoda that would stretch across the shifting landscape of their lives. In that charged moment, Mary knew she had transformed, reaffirmed not only in her love, but also in her identity. Her journey was just beginning, and she was fully equipped to navigate every exhilarating twist that lay ahead. As the horizon blazed golden with the promise of a new dawn, Mary took a deep breath, prepared to step boldly into the unfolding future, where love prevailed, boundaries dissolved, and authenticity reigned supreme. Now is the time to claim your own path toward love and authenticity. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.